How's everybody doing? So this will be more about basic Jbeam stuff, and I stick to basic Jbeam stuff because that's pretty much all I know is basic stuff. People that know more advanced stuff, then hopefully they'll put videos out. But I just stick to what I know. Sometimes try to experiment with new things, but I usually don't make videos on that because they rarely go right. So this video, we got a wood cube, and say we already got it in the game. We got a Jbeam for this. You can spawn it like a car, and it started off as a wood cube, and then I bowlined out a hole in it, and then I made an axle. Well, it's a mesh. As far as the game physics are concerned, it doesn't do anything. It's just a picture, a model. But you want to include it with the mesh. You want to include both meshes because you're working on something. You made this and you went back and you made that. Well, if you're working like I do, and you're the kind of guy that you work with your mod in the vehicles folder like I do, and you got your cube in there, and say you already put your textures for the metal in there too. I mean the pictures that are used. But earlier, when you exported your cube into here, well, it made the cube, but at the time, you didn't have a wood axle. It was actually metal, but you get the idea. You just had that texture, and when you exported the DAE and you loaded that mod for the first time, well, it loaded up its wooden texture and all its splendor, and well, it didn't have this at the time. So you want to do it after the fact. Well, let's see what happens after the fact. Well, firstly, before I even go there, there's two flex bodies here. There's two meshes that are not together. So in order for a mesh to show up in a Jbeam at all, like a mod, it's got to be declared. So if we go to well, let's load the cube up and I'll show you. So this is the cube as it exists right now at the moment. If you were to spawn it in the game, it'd be a pretty wood texture. But if you scroll down to the flex bodies, we got wood cube, and well, it's assigned to group A, and the nodes here that make up this particular cube are sitting under group A, and well, the beams that make it up, well, they're right here, and the triangles are here. But you want to add something else, you got to have another flex body. So the flex body that would go here for the second object would be, well, there it is, axle wood. Now we'll just make this group B. Now we don't have any nodes yet for it, so we have to get those. We got to make them. And there's no beams or triangles because, well, it's still just in its mesh form. Now I could tell this thing to export this thing like it is, where every one of these edges here, become a beam, and every one of these nodes here become a vertice. But that would not work good. Believe me, that would not work good. That's overkill for a simple thing like a axle. It would run like crap, and it'd probably slip through the damn cube. Well, I know it'd slip through the cube. It wouldn't be where it wouldn't stay where it's supposed to. So the way the wheels work, basically, if we take this pin here, you got two nodes if you're going to make a wheel, right? And one tells it, like if this is our tire here, I know it's a pretty tire. Look at them tread marks. Must come from Sears Automotive. So this is the axle, and of course this would be the other tire. And what's going to determine where that tire is at are these two nodes if you're making an axle. Now I could make a simplified version of this where it's like a node, a beam, and then that node will connect to that node with another beam, and that node will go on the end of that beam, and then we'd probably need to make like a duplicate of these and just rename them something different so we can offset them a bit, and like we connect this to this and this to this, and then we connect that to that and that to that, and that's basically how the game axles already look if you were to have the node beam editor just make you a axle. So if we load an extra node beam editor and just tell it to run the script loose script axle, and it's not a steering axle, so we won't check that. And you see basically that's somewhat what I got, well, at least the side view of it. But there's, and I can't well, I guess I could draw it like in another dimension. So theirs is more along the lines of this. I didn't think about I could rotate this thing and show you. They're not going to line up right. But you get the idea, right? So, and then those would connect to that. And the wheels later would, it just knows these two nodes here when you tell it, you know. And so that's how the game does the axles. That's some pretty artwork there, if I get to say so myself. So if we got this thing and we want to just make it something like a axle, and it's not going to rotate. It's just for show. Making it rotate would be a whole nother thing. Not doing that. So let's make a mesh plane. Let's just make a mesh plane. I could just make a damn axle with the node beam editor. That would be quicker. But I did try that earlier and tried to add it to my existing mod and rotate it, and I rotated the damn part of the cube too, and I just had to start over. I said, you know what, the hell with that. I'll just make my own damn axle. Just kind of, mirroring what they did here. So it starts off, it looks like we could just do a simple mesh plane. It'll work. It'll work, trust me on this. I'm pretty sure. So we'll make a mesh plane. We'll rotate it around. And we'll scale it down. Scale it that way. Then we'll go to edit mode and we'll take this edge here and extrude it out along that way. Then we will pick that edge and sit, or not that edge, I'm sorry, that node and hit F. This node and hit F. And if we can put a loop cut in the middle, and we need to do like that. And then the ones at the end here, we'll extrude that one out, but I need to make sure it's precise, or I need to keep up there with how much I offset it. Close to 3. So it's close enough. Let me double check. Let me make sure. So that to that. And I got some crossbars for support. So that should be pretty sturdy. Now keep in mind, if your node's this wide, then when you make your wheel, whether you model a wheel in here or use one from the game, well, just keep in mind where the nodes are, because that one will be where the wheel connects there, and this one will be where the wheel connects there. So you wouldn't want to have a damn tire that wide if your nodes are like that, or you wouldn't want one like that. So you kind of see where I'm going with that, right? Now you can always later in the Jbeam editor, you can always edit the damn node and move the node. That's not an issue. So this new plane here, if it's going to be a Jbeam, we're done moving it around and creating stuff, we need to apply all transforms. Its origin point is still here. It means it rotates on that axis. It needs to be set to 0, 0, 0, which is a default place for the 3D cursor. You can always just go to here and go to view and make sure your 3D cursor is at 0, 0, 0, because you can't easily move it accidentally. But you want it to be 0, 0, 0. And I don't think these matter, but I put them all to 0. So that when you select your object and you say apply all transforms, it now is pivoting at that spot, which is how you got to do it. Now we'll save our Blender file because we don't want to have to start over again if it crashes. And this plane, we need to give it a node prefix of something other than in. Everything's in when you export from here in the Jbeam editor, and you need to tell it to be something different. So I'll just put a letter Z. Alright, now we'll export this as a Jbeam and successfully exported one Jbeam file. Now I can import that exported Jbeam into our working or current working version of this mod by just moving it in there like that. Now it's loading off two different Jbeams, and we want to make sure that it's gonna load in the other one. So what we do, we now have our nodes. We can copy them to the clipboard and paste them under group B, since that thing is going to represent that axle. And then the nodes are there. We can put the beams in there. We don't need to do the triangles too, unless you want collisions with those, but I'm not doing that. I'm just putting the beams in. Now I can remove the mesh plane out of here by closing it, and if I moved it over correctly, you see that we lost the triangles because I don't want them. We can refresh, and as long as we refresh and it's still here, then you know you put it in the right, you know you did it right. But if you were to accidentally do something crazy like that and your damn thing disappears, whew, shit, I didn't think I was going to be able to undo that. Then you know you screwed up. It's not tolerant to little typos and stuff. So anyway, now we need to connect this to the cube, because right now, if we load it, it's just going to fall through. It's just going to fall. The cube will spawn, and this thing will just spawn, and it'll just plop. It'll just plop right to the ground. So, you know, you built things before probably. If you wanted to make something hold something, you know, you had those with those real stretchy cords with the hooks at the end. You know, you want to kind of secure something. Well, that's what we're basically going to do. We're going to go right here to the bottom of the beams, where the last of these beams were, and we'll go to beams, add single. Now this is where you got to make sure your cursor is here, because anything you do from this point on, when you're using that tool, it's going to put it where the cursor is. If you forget, it's going to put all the stuff at the top, and it can't be up there. So I'll just start like a spider, connecting this stuff. Shit, let me start over. God damn it. I don't remember which one I put where. So I just removed them and hit refresh. It's probably better just do a few at a time. That way you can make it the same. That probably would hold it. Oh, we can try. We can always add more if it doesn't hold it good. We can always add more. So we'll save this. Now, it knows to put that mesh with group B. The question is, well, the textures are already made for that block. It's not going to also make them for that other thing after the fact. So it's probably going to give us a no texture when it does load. I'll be right back while this is loading. All right. All right, so that means I screwed up. That's exactly what that means. All right, let me see what I did. Well, huh. This ain't giving me an error. What's the game say? Oh. Dumbass. Yep, that's what it was. So like I said, it's not going to do the texture because, texture's already made. So we got to manually do it, which ain't a problem. You can do it pretty easily. What's the texture name? We go back to Blender. It is going to be, I call it Axle Wood. It's like Axl Rose, but Axel Wood. He's happy. A happy fella, you could say. Axel Wood. Happy to see you. So we'll go to the material editor. And see, this is the existing one. Now, when a material editor stops, like when there's no more textures, you just get two brackets like this. But if there's ever going to be another material, you put a bracket and a comma. And what I'll do is just borrow this. And I'll paste it here, and well, I'll put the name of the other material there instead. What's the base color? I think, what did I call it? You can do all that in the game. I just base diffuse.dds. Base color map. Now the others, I don't want to do that with all these. So what I'll do is finish this in the game. It's kind of like giving the damn thing a spot, at the gym. It does work. It just, when you start adding stuff, you kind of got to get a little bit of help and kind of, at least get the texture going. Hopefully one day they'll make it where you can dynamically update in the game. I probably got to reload the mod. No, did it all right. I forgot something though. Those UVs aren't right. Somebody forgot to delete one of the UV maps, because Beam don't work with two UVs. If you got two UVs like that, it's not gonna work. So you delete the one. You get this when you bake textures, by the way, which I did earlier. So you would delete the one that's not being used, since Beam only will recognize one per object, is the way I take it. Now, I got to resend it over, but I'm not sending the mesh plane. That's the Jbeam. So we'll pick the cube and the axle and resend that over. We'll just say selection only. Overwrite the one that's in there, and that should fix my UVs. Ever since update 29, the game does not alt-tab back. It's annoying as shit, man. Having to keep... You can be in here and you can go to another program, and when you alt-tab back, it'll like flicker 3 times, and then it'll like minimize and look like it went up into that corner. It only seems to do it after you've been out of it a bit. It's so freaking frustrating, man. I wanted to do it, it won't do it. That's okay. That's not what the point of this video is. I'll vent in another video. So there's our little axle. And like I said, it's not going to actually rotate. It's just more or less artwork. So we put a wheel on it. We got something there instead of just invisible nothing. Oh, I did say I'd finish the texture, didn't I? In here. So we'll hit F11. We'll pick the vehicle, so that when we go to Material Editor, we only see the textures. Alright, we'll go to PBR. Normal map. Axle normals. That don't look right. There we go. Metallic. Let's see. I don't know how to bake a metallic, so I'll just use the roughness map. I don't know how to bake those in Blender. Sometimes I'll bake a glossy map and tell that to be the metallic map. But I probably need to look it up. I just haven't. I keep meaning to, and I don't. So there's our PBR axle. Yeah, that's just that's just the seam. You know, when you texture things, you get seams. You usually try to hide that, like the ugly side of the Christmas tree that you put in the corner. But it'll be okay. We'll save this and let's get the wheel. Pretty much I can do that with the game running, and it should update the mod. So let's go to where I made another mod that's got the wheel stuff already in it. This skibbity toilet, I put wheels in it, and I put them in the toilet Jbeam. So we'll import them into our editor. I'll import them into a separate editor because it ain't actually going to have anything to do with this mod, as far as we're not sharing anything except just the code for the wheels. Now the wheels don't use, wheels are a little different as far as what the shit. I want it loaded in there. Oh, because it's still in the damn zip. You take it out of there. It ain't gonna load like that. Alright. So the wheels. I remember earlier I was telling about those two nodes that determine, you know, which one's which as far as the wheel. Now they also got to be in a group. So we'll put them in a separate group. If you got two wheels, it needs to be two different groups. Now, when I made that mesh, that mesh plane, it's right now all of this stuff is just one group at the moment. So what I need to do is I need to isolate the nodes that are going to be for the wheels, which is just two on each side, that one and that one. I need to tell those two and these two to be separate groups than the rest of the stuff, so that I can say 1B wheel 1, 1B wheel 2. So we'll go back to our node editor, get the one that's got our mod in it, and it looks like on one side it'll be Z0 and Z2. Z0 and Z2. So we'll say you and you. And don't forget to remove them up here, since they are moved now. This will be one wheel. I'm not sure what side. We can call it whatever you want to call it. We'll just call it wheel. We'll call it wheel 1. And then the ones on the other side, it'll be Z8 and Z10. That'll be wheel number 2. Now this stuff don't got to be perfectly lined up. It's annoying to look at if it's off. Oops, look at that. I almost made a typo. You leave that there, the whole damn mod won't load. So that's that. Let's save our Jbeam. I really don't like doing stuff twice. Now let's go get our code. We need our code for the wheels. So we got to go back and scroll down to the code for the wheels. Now it's a simple, small amount of stuff, Shit just nothing I can memorize. And it starts with that bracket and ends with that bracket. Depending on what brackets we need, we may have to add a bracket or two, but I'll just copy all this. Well, we only need 2 wheels, so I'll just copy this like that. Now I'll go to the other one. And right before the beams start, since it's got to be within a bracket and a bracket, we'll paste it, and we'll just copy that bracket and paste that bracket. So if you look here, you got name, which the game recommends using FL for front left, FR for front right, RL for rear left, RR for rear right. But if you're going to have like 6 wheels, you could do RRL, for example. But that is nowhere else, anywhere in your Jbeam. Nothing you've done to this point has that included anywhere, and it's not going to. All that you got to tell it is, well, FL is going to be wheel 1, and FR2 is going to be wheel 2. And then you just put the name in both places. And then you get these 2 nodes here. So you got node 1 and node 2. So looking at this, the first node is the inside node, and the second node is the outside node. So in this particular case, the one that is wheel 1, so I gotta make sure, wheel 1 ZO and Z2. So Z2 will be the first one, and the second will be ZO. ZO. I'll name my kid ZO. Be a good name. ZO. And the other one, Z8 and Z10. Z10, Z10. Now we're not using any steering. I think I can take those out actually, since we don't have a steering, or we don't have a node for the steering, but I'm going to leave them in there. This is the direction that it turns. It tells you. And see the node S here where it's got 999999999999. That's basically saying ignore. The way I understand it, they don't use that one anymore. Even though it's still in the code, they don't use it. And the arm here, well, we're not using the arm because it's not a steering wheel. It's not going to have any steering to it. But like I said, we'll leave them in there just for now. Now if I save this and refresh the game, we should have 2 wheels on our box. You won't see any physical wheels like the mesh. You'll just see the Jbeam. And so there we go. We got our wheels. Now, just like we made a mesh for the axle, we'd have to make a mesh for the wheels, which I don't have a wheel made. I thought about making a cheese wheel, like a block of cheese, We need to make the wheels a little bigger. But this is a good time to point out the detail of the wheels. You see these little tire spokes? Well, if you were looking at the code, where do you think that would be? Right there. So if you told it just to be 16, your wheel would be, God dog, I hate that shit. I wish I could alt tab back. See, it's less now. And if you were to say like 3, For an extreme example, you'd be driving on little triangles or little nubs. I don't know what you'd call them. It wouldn't be a wheel. Yeah, they're probably not going to turn very good. But someone made a shitload of YouTube video, got a shitload of views for making a damn cube wheel one time. People loved that video, I guess. It's like, it showed like stairs laying sideways and the wheel fit perfectly in there as a square, and it's like, well, this worked. I didn't ever watch it though. I guess it did. Anyway, that's what that does to raise. I will put that back to 32. And the wheel offset, the wheel width, we shouldn't have to do anything with the offset because it should put them exactly where they're supposed to be, in between there and there. And the radius, well, we can make the wheel bigger. Damn, that'd be a big ass wheel there. A damn wagon wheel. Remember that old commercial? It's a wagon wheel. Damn, like one of them damn big ass unicycles, you know? Like back in the 1800s, when everybody wore a damn hat all the time, one of them Dick Tracy hats. Everybody had a hat. I guess you were not a gentleman unless you had a hat. I don't know. I like watching them old early 1900 videos that have been AI restored and see what people were moseying along and doing back in the early 1900s. And everybody had a hat on. Everybody. Let's make this 0.75. I'm not going to mess with the width. The width's fine. Alright, we are on to something, folks. Now, if we want to make a wheel for that, well, I should probably start that on another video, because this one's already going long enough. And, well, I don't know how much hard drive space I got left. So let me stop this, and then I'll do another video on putting a physical object that you see for those Jbeam wheels to represent.